Heroes Forge, a Heroes of the Storm podcast.
What's up, Forgers? Welcome to Season 2, Episode number 91 of Heroes Forge, a community-driven podcast all about Heroes of the Storm. As always, this podcast is brought to you by our outstanding supporters on patreon.com/HeroesForge. This is your show host, as always, Jeff Reynolds, and I'm here with the co-host of the show, who is more awesome than the house on the block that gives out king-size candy bars on Halloween. It's Kristen Ashton.
Oh, the best houses, right? Although if I am to be 100% honest, there was never a house I went to that gave away full-sized, king-sized candy bars.
Really? Yeah, there was one house in my neighborhood, and it was not close to where we were, but we always made that our goal to get to that house, and you'll get a kick out of this. We called it the Red Lighthouse when we were growing up because on the top of their roof, they would have this spinning, almost like police light that would just spin, and it was just red, and then they would sit out in their front yard in Halloween costumes in like these old rickety rocking chairs, and they would just rock back and forth. And then when if you got the courage when you're a little kid to go up and talk to them, they'd give you like a full-size candy bar.
Man, that's a great idea because it means you have to earn the best reward. But that is amazing, and it would blow kids' minds. Oh, I love it. That is a life goal for me.
Yeah, it was really cool because every year growing up, we'd always say, well, we have to go to the Red Lighthouse because we have to get the king size. It's almost like a film. There's a film in there somewhere.
There absolutely is, except, of course, in the film, everything goes wrong, right? And you're fresh out of college or you're fresh into college, somewhere around 18.
Yeah. Everything goes wrong. Kristen, how are your Heroes games going? Are you enjoying Anna out there in the Nexus? What's up with it?
It's going really, really well this week. I feel like ever since I've been back from vacation, I've been in my little Zen mode where I'm not blaming everybody. I'm not blaming myself. I'm just enjoying the games for what they are. And of course, that's led to better games because I've been having fun with it, win or lose. And I also love the fact that Anna doesn't have any movement escape. So if you're one of those heroes that can stay sticky and stay on her, you got yourself an easy target.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun playing against Anna. I, believe it or not, have not jumped on Anna to play myself, but I have seen tons of Anna in the game, back and forth, tons of Eye of Horus, trying to snipe me from across the battlefield, and it's really fun for the same reasons. And I agree with you, too. We got to play a little bit together this week, and when we played, it was really fun because you were just warming back up from being on vacation, and, I just had a day of, I just want to play this game and not worry about it and just have fun. And so that's always when the game is the best, I think.
It really is. And I mean, of course, on top of that, I feel like the current changes haven't really ruined my roster at all. Sonya is still crazy good. Li Ming is still a ton of fun. And those are my two main heroes right now.
Yeah, it's been a blast. Get out there and play if you haven't been playing recently. And get out there and play because there's a lot of stuff coming up in the Blizzard universes, and one of them being 32 days until BlizzCon, which gets smaller every week as expected, but it's coming up fast.
Oh, it is, and the chunks that are taken out of this countdown are even bigger. Each week we get closer. I cannot believe we are basically a month away.
Yeah, next month is BlizzCon, and we are at the start October 1st, so we just have one awesome month to wait until BlizzCon. And at BlizzCon was announced this week, or actually last week, that the World of Podcasts Heroes panel will be happening the day before BlizzCon at 8:30 p.m. Pacific at the Hilton Hotel at the Convention Center in Anaheim. This event is open to everyone. Like we said before, you do not need to have a ticket to BlizzCon in order to attend this event. So if you're in the area, stop by. And the Heroes panel's at 8:30 Pacific. On the Heroes panel, we have Scott Johnson from Core, Kyle Ferguson from Into the Nexus, Andrew Kang from Gankwish Squad, John Forty from Nexus Trolls, John Jagger from Core, Ryan Reeder from Lords of the Storm, and I have the awesome opportunity of sitting on this panel with these guys as well. It is going to be killer, Kristen. It's going to just be a ton of fun.
Oh, it was amazing last year, and it's going to be even better this year because this is even bigger than last year.
Yeah, it's the biggest one yet, but don't take our word for it. We have a little audio clip from the World of Podcast and Con Before the Storm group. So let's go ahead and listen to that for more information.
The storm, known as BlizzCon, is almost upon us, and that means once again it's time for podcasters, community personalities, and fans to come together for one of the largest gatherings created by fans for fans. It's Con Before the Storm, featuring the 5th annual World of Podcast. It's shaping up to be our largest World of Podcasts yet, with participants from over 50 podcasts and additional content being produced before and after the big party at the Anaheim Hilton on November 2nd. Even if you can't join us in Anaheim, we do invite you to check out the shows on Alpha Geek Radio or at twitch.tv/ConBeforeStorm. Can't listen to us live? We have you covered with podcast versions of our content available for download on demand via our World of Podcast show feed on Google Music and Apple Podcasts. For complete information, show schedule, and much, much more, be sure to check out ConBeforeStorm.com, and also don't forget to follow us on Twitter at ConBeforeStorm and at World of Podcasts.
Now, the really cool thing about Con Before the Storm is that they're giving us the audio feed for the Heroes World of Podcast panel with all of those folks I listed before. That will be available on our podcasting panel as soon as it's made available to us that week. We won't have an actual show that week like we do week after week because of the craziness of BlizzCon, so this is awesome that they're giving it to us to provide for everyone out there to have something on the HeroesForge feed out there and you can listen to it. If you're out there thinking, how can I possibly wait 32 days for BlizzCon and you need something to do, Kristen, why don't you tell everybody out there another little project we started?
Well, another little project that began just today, actually, is a Divinity Original Sin 2 stream, 2 p.m. Pacific, over at twitch.tv/Kyle Ferguson, where you, Jeff, myself, John Jagger, and, of course, Kyle Ferguson get together, 4-man co-op, as we make our way through the world of Divinity. And today led to some very fun moments, didn't it, Jeff?
It really did. We played for hours today. I want to say like 3 hours total, just straight up. Our adventurers, did a whole bunch of cool stuff, and it's only going to get cooler. So check it out every Sunday night. No spoilers for the game if you don't want to hear it, but let me tell you what, this game is, in Kyle's words, it's really thick and dense. There's a lot going on in this game, and I can't wait to explore it with you guys. Again, that's Sunday at 2 p.m. Pacific on twitch.tv/Kyle Ferguson. And make sure you check out Kyle Ferguson's stream anyways, which if you don't already, for all the great Heroes of the Storm content that he puts out. Speaking of Heroes of the Storm, this month is special, Kristen, and we're deviating from the path here a little bit on what we normally do on this show because it is a very awesome month.
It is. I think October in terms of holidays is my favorite month. So I want to thank you listeners for going on this journey with us because I had a very strong desire to forge monsters and horrors from the lore that we as humans have accumulated up to this point, because why wouldn't we want to imagine Frankenstein in the Nexus or Samara from The Ring?
Yeah, there's a great opportunity to have a bunch of fun with these characters that we're talking about each week during the month of October. Like Kristen said, we're bringing in these horror icons and what they might be like if we brought them into the Nexus. We're going to tie it back to Blizzard a little bit in here, but mostly it's just fun and talking about kits and some of these abilities and ideas that we have. We can talk a little bit about what we might think they could be implemented into other characters that could be brought into the Nexus, and really just coming up with some really cool ideas.
Exactly, because, Dracula, for instance, there are vampire characters within the Blizzard universe, but why don't we just take it whole hog and we go all the way to the big man himself this week with Dracula?
That's right, forging Dracula on the first Heroes Halloween episode on HeroesForge. Let's do it, and let's forge.
Let's forge.
Dracula this week. What would Dracula be like if we brought him into Heroes of the Storm? Kristen, this was your choice because I think Dracula, no pun intended, is close to your heart.
He is very close. He has indeed stolen my heart, as it were. When I first had to read this in a college course I took regarding horror and the horror genre, horror literature and also horror film, and kind of studying that in a more critical eye to better understand why we like horror so much and how its effects draw out kind of this darker part, but in a sense also helps us purge this evil from ourselves, if you decide to look at it that way, right? And Dracula, though written in 1897, I would argue is one of the best horror books still out there today.
Yeah, and it must be, because like we talked about before the show started, I have not read this actual novel, but I am familiar with Dracula, right? I mean, the whole Dracula, vampires, even werewolves, those sorts of things, they start in our imaginations here, at least in my thoughts, is where this all begins, and people know Dracula. There have been countless films about Dracula or with Dracula in the film, and I think that it wouldn't be this big if it wasn't a big deal.
Exactly. And vampirism is something that goes back, of course, even further than Dracula. There was a graduate student I knew in college who wrote a thesis on his belief that the story of Oedipus Rex is one of the original variations of a vampire story. It's a sickness that comes into a land that slowly sucks the life from it, and you have to find the source and purge it to get rid of it.
Oh, that's cool. That's a really cool thought. I really like it. Well, Dracula, let's talk about him a little bit. So give us a backstory on Dracula so it can help us forge these kits for heroes.
Can do. Making his debut appearance in 1897, Dracula became a legend that has persisted to this day. A powerful vampire, able to control weather and animals, and subsisting on the blood of humans, he is the undead. Since then, he has been adapted and readapted in horror fiction, from the famed portrayal by Bela Lugosi in 1931 to the more modern take with Gary Oldman. Dracula is a fiend that has captured the hearts and minds of humans around the world.
Absolutely. And there are tons of different visuals for what Dracula would look like. You can search Google Images and just come up with, a great span of different types of quote unquote Dracula and how people imagine him to look like, which is really cool.
Yeah, and it's so different, and it makes me chuckle because it's funny to see what images of Dracula have persisted through the years versus those in the novel that were kind of lost. Like in the novel, he's got hairy palms when Jonathan Harker first meets him, but that's not something you really see nowadays. So it's really cool to find what different generations of us grab onto as the scary, more erotic parts of it.
Yeah, and what parts of the story take off and get embellished throughout, the telephone syndrome of it getting passed on and on and on and on, and the steaks and the garlic and how that all gets embellished. Doing my research on this book over the last week, trying to find things and realizing, oh, that's how it's intended to be, not how, how society has made it blow up into something that it isn't.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And so I'm really excited to kind of delve even further into the mythos to see where it would be within Heroes. And it's going to be OP. I'm saying that right now. This is going to be an OP hero because he darn well should be.
Absolutely. So let's get into the Blizzard fantasy here a little bit. So if Dracula was a Heroes of the Storm fanboy, as you say, and just liked to play Heroes of the Storm, right? What character would he play?
So this one was fun. So imagining Dracula, he's got his computer, he's in the modern day, he's adapted, you can't really tell him apart from others, and he's got his favorite game out. I think the favorite character would be Jaina. And I say that because I think Jaina is the most like Mina Harker. And Mina is the reason that Dracula leaves his castle to go to England.
Oh, I see where you're going with this. Okay, that's cool. I was gonna say that maybe his favorite character would be Lunara because of the poisoning and, the slow damage over time, just bleeding out basically. But I like your idea. Your idea really sticks with the lore. Now, if he wasn't playing Heroes of the Storm, Kristen, what Blizzard game would Dracula be down to play? Like, what's his number one game?
I think it would be Diablo, mostly because he would play the single source of change in the world, and I don't think his ego would let him play a team-based game.
See, I was going to say World of Warcraft because I thought he would be able to play forever.
Well, there you go. You're right. He wouldn't really need a break except to feed.
Absolutely. Now, with all of that out of the way, let's get forging. What we're going to do is we're going to put Dracula in the Nexus. Kristen's going to build a kit. I'm going to build a kit, and then we're just going to talk through it. So we're going to start with what we always start with on these kits. Kristen, what role classification are you giving him if you bring him in?
If I bring him in, full-on assassin.
That's exactly what I thought as well. I think, the thought of... There's something that goes with horror and being an assassin, right? I mean, tanks aren't that scary. Supports definitely aren't scary. Specialists can be scary, but assassins, that's scary.
That's a great point, because assassins are the ones that can finish the job. And if we're going with something that takes life, literally takes life, that's it, right? Something that can get the job done.
Yeah. How are you getting that job done? What is your trait?
All right. The trait is called mist. In an instant, Dracula can become an insubstantial cloud of mist that gains movement speed and becomes immune to damage. This transformation also cures him of any lingering effects like poisons. When changing back into vampire form, he is invisible for a few seconds.
Nice. And what's really cool about this? The first thing I just thought of was like Reaper's shift ability in Overwatch, right? You're in there, you're in the battle, and you hit shift and you turn into like a Reaper mist, and you're able to move through the battlefield, not get hurt, and you can go through, people and stuff and then show up on the other side. But this is so Dracula because it heals you from any lingering effects like poisons or damage over time, and you're invisible when you reappear. Imagine if somebody just turned around and you were there. I mean, that's horror to a T.
Exactly, and that's it. I mean, Dracula is not a full-on, in-your-face, loud and proud. He is a scheming being that has been around for centuries.
That is really cool. I love what you did with that. Okay, how does he ride around the battlefield?
Okay, he's going to turn into a swarm of bats, and I did watch that most recent Dracula movie, The Untold Story. And while I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, the main actor who played Dracula did a fantastic job. And I loved visually how they turned him into the bats, and they made that really a large part of the action as he jumped around the battlefield.
Yeah, that's a really cool idea, and I have seen that as well, and there might be a reason it's The Untold Story.
It's true. There are some great ideas, some really cool things in there, but it got muddied along the way is all I can assume.
But the bat idea is really sweet. So you're thinking it's like this big cloud of bats that he just kind of poofs into and turns, and then you control the whole group of bats as they go through the battlefield. And if you get hit or you decide to unmount, he just kind of swirls back into Dracula.
Exactly. And maybe you can have some comedic effect where if you fly into somebody, a few of the bats go, ee! And then they fall into the ground, and then they kind of poof into smoke, and that's it.
But this is definitely an idea that I think could be brought to the Nexus with a bunch of different characters throughout any of the Blizzard universes. Because, magic and turning yourself into other creatures, like what if you could do this with a druid or, different types of magic wielders out there that would be able to do something similar.
Yeah, definitely. And we have Countess Kerrigan, and she does a tiny little bat.
That's true. That is true. You're right. And then, of course, we have the Arthas skin that is basically Count. It's very cool. See, they want Dracula in the game. They do. What's your first basic ability?
Right, the first one is called Hypnosis. Facing his opponent, Dracula seduces his foe into a state of hypnosis. The longer the connection is made, the slower the attacks and movement of the enemy until the enemy is stopped altogether. Only damage from the enemy's team will snap them awake.
Oh, this is such a cool idea. So is this looking like, the only way I can describe it is like a Zubat, ability from Pokemon where it kind of comes out as like sound waves that's hypnotic and like trancing you out?
Yeah, something like that. I like the idea of the waves, right? Kind of faster than the Brightwing heal, but so everybody can see and they know what's going on. Because you need some sort of visual indication that your teammate is being hypnotized.
Yeah, that is such a cool idea. So if you brought up Brightwing, is this just like in a cone area in front of you, or is it all the way around your character?
I like the idea of this being a cone because I would definitely want him to be able to choose his target versus trying to get everybody.
Now, when he's using this ability, is he channeling it, or is he able to activate it and then continue on with his day, or is it's pulsing as after you activated it, you can use your other abilities and keep moving forward?
Great question. And maybe that's the trade. Maybe the slower the enemy goes, the faster he can move. So initially it's a channeled cast, but the longer it goes, the more you can move, and all of a sudden the channel doesn't matter anymore.
So you're leeching their movement speed for yourself so that you can move while you're doing it.
I like it. Leeching, yes.
That is very cool. Very cool. Second basic ability.
All right, second one is drink. Dracula swoops in and begins feasting on his victim. Both are motionless while Dracula gains health as the foe loses it. If the foe was under hypnosis, the healing and damage done are doubled.
Oh, so you seduce them. I mean, that... And again, I haven't read the book, but from what I understand, that is totally the novel, right? I mean, it's all about seduction, hypnosis, and then when you have them at their weakest point, they think that they want to be doing this with whatever it is that you're doing.
Exactly. They want to help you heal. They want your team to win the game. Why would you tell them no?
It's great. I love it. I mean, there's potential for a Jedi skin in there. It's some weird, I don't know. These are not the droids you're looking for, kind of weird thing. But okay, so he swoops in. So there's a movement attached to this ability. Is it a point and click sort of movement where you say, I want that hero? Or is it a skill shot where you're swooping, and if you happen to hit somebody at the end of your swoop, you grab them and then you start, doing your Dracula thing?
Ooh, that's a cool question. I'd like this one to be attached to his levels. So in the beginning, it's very slow. It looks like it's very planned out, very methodical. But as you gain levels and become stronger and more sure of yourself and your role, then it becomes like a little leap. And the amount of time it takes to get there would still remain the same, but it would be a slight variation.
Oh, that's cool. That's a total Kel'Thuzad kind of thing where you are getting more powerful and you're feeling it as you play the game, which is really unique. I mean, you're getting more powerful in the game, but everything scales with you, So when you're playing a character like Kel'Thuzad in the game where you're completing quests and you're going through, I mean, you feel that power.
You really do. As soon as it clicks, And I was playing the Butcher this weekend. Oh, my goodness. I got 200 stacks was impressive enough, but then even 220 made me go, wowza, this is... I think Butcher has a place.
Yeah, I really have been enjoying Butcher lately too, which would probably be one of Dracula's favorite characters if you played Heroes of the Storm.
Potentially with all of the meat and the blood, but maybe slightly at odds because the Butcher's so messy.
That's right, and he is a man of regalness.
Pinky's up all the way with this guy.
That's right. And regalness just entered the dictionary. Let's move on to your third basic ability.
The third one is called the Sisters. Giving a call, the three vampire sisters emerge from nothingness, helping Dracula get his prey away from troublesome areas where they could be interrupted. The three sisters entrance an enemy hero, calling them to follow for a set distance. The enemy hero cannot fight this.
All right, here we go. This is the seduction that I was just talking about. You got the seduction, hypnosis, and the death.
Exactly. So I imagine you'd sick the sisters out there because you wouldn't want to get your hands dirty. No one can know it's you, right? Because then you run into danger. So you get them pulled away, and as they're getting closer, that's when you start the channeling. So by the time they reach you, they're already ripe for the pickings.
Oh, I love this, and it's so cool. And the sisters was something I didn't know anything about before researching Dracula.
Really? So you've never even watched Bram Stoker's Dracula with Gary Oldman as Dracula?
I have not, no.
You have to, if only because of Keanu Reeves. And I actually mean Gary Oldman's performance, but it is a beautiful mess. It is absolutely fantastic mess.
I am totally down to watch it, and I will now. I have been seduced after doing all of this research. I'm telling you, maybe there's Dracula seducing me. This is a really cool idea. And you know, your third basic ability is usually where the escape lives, and what we've seen in the characters that we forged on this show and the characters that are in the game currently is that, you know, that's where you usually have, if you have any, escape. And so this is a cool way of implementing it in a different fashion for Dracula.
Yeah, and you're right, too, bringing up escape, because you could use the sisters to pull them away if something's off. But yeah, the whole idea that Dracula isn't run in like Illidan. He is very much a set up your battlefield so that you have every advantage in the world to succeed.
Yeah, what do they look like?
Oh, goodness. They are very scantily clad, like very sheer material. Probably long hair, no pointy ears. They look like humans. I would imagine like little fangs and some blood drops coming down, and maybe they sing a siren song.
Oh, yeah. That's so cool. Very cool. Man, you have the best imagination, Kristen. I love it. Let's get on to heroic abilities. What's your first one?
All right. The first one is called the Children of the Night. Dracula summons a pack of 5 wolves driven into a blood frenzy under his command. They can either all target one hero or be broken up to target individual heroes. Their coming is noted by howls.
Oh, cool. So where are they coming from? Are they coming from all different directions into the battle, or are they coming from behind Dracula? How does it work?
The second one, I think, you hear them coming and then they whoosh through Dracula's legs, and like there's a cool cloak effect or something as he stands there, arms crossed or something, a very heroic, noble pose. And then he just controls what they attack and when they attack.
Oh, that is too cool. So imagine a level 20 augment for this where you could choose the direction that the wolves would come in from in the battle, right? So it's kind of like a Cassia ult, the one where it's like the Valkyrie that pulls you in, but you can choose which direction you want these wolves to run in from.
Level 20 indeed. That's gross, and I like it so much, because then you could do surprise sneak attacks. You'd hear the howl, but maybe you wouldn't know what direction it's coming from.
Yeah, it's really cool. That's what I think would be really scary about it. It'd be great. I love this. The wolf's blood frenzy. I mean, it's perfect. What's your second heroic?
All right, the second one, this is where it gets probably my favorite. All right. Flesh of my flesh is what this is called. If an enemy hero has been hypnotized and drunk from, they are at risk during this heroic. Now holding sway over the weak flesh of mortals, Dracula can choose to go in and transform these individuals into servants bound to his bidding. In order to do so, Dracula must grab hold of an enemy hero and have them drink his blood. Once done so, they are marked for the rest of the game. This mark becomes stronger each time that hero dies and comes back to life. The mark itself stops them from doing damage to Dracula's team. At first, it's a damage reduction. As it grows in strength, so too does the effect until the hero is all but useless to their own team.
Whoa, I see what you mean by overpowered. I mean, this is really cool. So All right. So, I mean, this can snowball into like craziness. So tell me a little bit about how this works. So you're hypnotized and you've been drunk from. So you have a debuff on you that tells you that if you get hit by flesh of my flesh, you're going to be in trouble.
Yes, I think that would only be fair, right? Because you could have it where there's no debuff, but why would you do that to somebody on the enemy team who would need to be aware of their positioning in that situation?
Totally. So how long does that last for? I mean, if you've been hypnotized and drunk from any time in the game, then you can be affected by this?
Yes, correct. After level 10, if this heroic has been taken, that debuff is on you for the rest of the game.
Oh, cool. I mean, basically you're turning their side without turning their side. I mean, they can still do damage to minions, mercenaries, structures, all of that stuff. So, I mean, it balances itself out in a way there, which is really cool.
Exactly. So you, as Dracula, would need to be careful as to who you choose, right? Because a tank... even though they're easy enough to grab, you'd really want to go after the assassins who would be doing the damage to your team.
Oh, this is really neat. I mean, what do you see being a level 20 to this heroic? What else could it possibly do to be even cooler?
The ritual is complete if they've died a certain number of times between 10 and 20, they're on your team now. And they do damage to all of what Dracula's enemy things would be.
That's too cool. So if I'm just picturing how you would have to, on the enemy team, really try to not die. I mean, as much as we don't want to die in games now, I mean, there would be points where, I'm just going to get this boss, and if I die, it's cool. Like, if they come in and take it, at least I got the boss. I mean, no. If you've got this on the enemy team, you have to change your strat completely and make it focusing about not dying at all.
Exactly, and it's something you can do, so maybe it's not as OP as I think it is, because it's more of a punishment for poor death choices, because you can still die a few times and remain useful. But if you keep feeding yourself, that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Yeah, it's really cool. I like it a lot. What an awesome assassin kit for Dracula, Kristen. It is so cool. If you had to sum it all up, what would you say?
Oh, geez. I didn't even think of one tonight. You caught me with my pants down. I was putting them on the fritz.
Perfect. And maybe you'll have to use that one again for Frankenstein. Who knows?
Oh, maybe.
Very cool. What a great kit. All right, before we get to my kit and talk through Dracula again, we have some people that we need to thank. First and foremost, a huge thank you, as always, to all of our supporters on patreon.com/HeroesForge. That is the way that you can donate to the show. If you like the show and you like what you hear week after week, head on over there and check out our Patreon goals and drop us $1 or $2. The show will always continue to be available on all of your favorite podcasting apps, but this helps the show continue to go on and strong, and we can do special things like these special episodes these months. So a huge thank you to all of our patrons again. A thank you to everyone that's given us a 5-star review on iTunes. That also helps the show grow. If you listen to us on iTunes, drop us a 5-star review with a little note, and we'll give you a shout out right here in the show, thanking you for your support. All right, Kristen, I went with an assassin Dracula as well.
Nice. So are you thinking melee, range? I mean, what, bursty assassin? What kind of assassin did you see?
Okay, so before we get into this, I must say, like I've said before, that my vision of Dracula is probably the watered down vision of what we all, and I shouldn't say we all, but what most people envision, Dracula, I want to suck your blood, the kind of thing, So I envision him to have, super long fingernails, long nails, and he kind of does this regal close combat swiping. And maybe he even has one arm underneath his other arm, where he's kind of just like sitting like this, and he's just swiping with his one arm, because, he's just that badass.
He really is. And that indicates, right, he's not even using his full power, because why would he on such insignificant foes?
Yeah. Exactly. So this trait is called Gracious Manners. Now, the fantasy with this Dracula kit is that I want him to be a burst assassin that torments the enemy with deadly attacks and the feeling of him being quote unquote unkillable. Gracious Manners is a passive trait that gives Dracula a damage buff to enemies that he is not the first to engage with. If Dracula is the first to deal damage to an enemy in a set amount of time, he does not receive this buff. But if any other hero engages and attacks Dracula's target before he does, he will deal increased damage to that target for a short amount of time. When this is used to its maximum potential, Dracula will be able to be a follow-up DPS hero that deals large amounts of damage after the engage is made by another hero.
Oh, sick. So how much time would he have between his friend hitting an enemy and then him going in with that buff?
I think that he's got a good amount of time. I mean, I don't think it has to be super short. I think Diablo charges in, picks somebody up, tosses them over, deals damage to them. Dracula has some sort of visual aid. Maybe, there's like a blood circle or something around their name. He knows I'm dealing increased damage to this person. So that's my target. And that gives you even more reason to have your tanks be the engagers, and to it teaches you how to play the game, which is the stuff I love to theory craft.
Right. And then of course an assassin that relies on patience, which is very, very critical to many, many aspects of this game.
Yeah, so that's something that I think could be implemented into the game. I mean, we see a lot of weird traits that work in different ways. Cassia, like continuously moving and taking less damage. This would just be your Gracious Manners. You're letting someone else attack first, and then you are buffed to do that. And I got this name because in the descriptions of these books, people are always very surprised and they're very taken aback by Dracula's Gracious Manners, they call it.
Oh, certainly. How much of a gentleman he is. And I mean, this speaks great to his great. I don't know where I was going with that. This speaks well to Dracula's personality, because he usually isn't the first to strike, You have this whole army of the elements and animals that you use to create distractions like you would use your teammates for, and then you go in and you take all the glory.
Yeah, that's kind of the feeling I was going for here. And so his mount, I love the bad idea. I was this close, which is very close for our audio listeners, to doing the bad idea, and I was like, I think that Kristen will probably take that one, so I came up with this. I'm thinking it's a horse-drawn carriage, right? But the driver is a pale, famished, almost dead man, and this man has a name. His name is Wolfram Broker.
A nice hats off to our Stoker. I love it, and I love that you went with the carriage. I love it, because that's a big part of the lore there. I mean, it is the first really kind of creepy supernatural thing Harker comes across.
Yeah. So, I mean, I thought the carriage would be cool. I mean, we've seen it. If you've been, you've seen these movies, or even, Disneyland, and, there's a horse-drawn carriage with like a spiritual horse that's pulling it along. I mean, that's just a quintessential horror thing. So I'm like, you know what? Let's give it to Dracula.
Yeah, and why wouldn't he have it too? I mean, oh, I love it. I'm nerding out over here because he does drive a carriage. He absolutely drives the carriage, and I love it.
Let's get into some basic abilities here. The first one I'm calling Blood Transfusion. So, using blood magic, Dracula blasts a target hero with this basic ability. And this basic ability is a large blood orb that is hurled in the air, and if it connects with the target hero, they take damage and become hexed. This hex will make all of the damage they do for a very short amount of time return to Dracula as health. And this lives in that fantasy that I wanted to live in, where I want him to feel very difficult to kill. I want him to feel like a Varian level of frustration.
That's perfect then, right? I mean, what's more frustrating as an assassin than to have something like this on you? So you're going, what, you mean I'm supposed to stop attacking? No, I won't. And then you get your team in trouble because Genji turned on his evade and you killed two of your teammates.
Absolutely. Talk about frustration, I'm telling you. So the second hero, or the second basic ability that goes along with that, I'm calling Loving Grasp. So Dracula, much like in Kristen's kit, grabs a target hero that's near him, and pulls him close in what I'm calling the Loving Grasp. This grasp stuns the enemy hero, and they are unable to move from Dracula's clutches. During this time, Dracula bites the target on the neck and begins to suck their blood, dealing damage to the target. This damage continues until the ability is completed, or until Dracula is stunned.
Interesting. Until Dracula is stunned, huh?
Yeah, so he's in there, he's got the target just holding it really close, like you've seen in all of these vampire movies, sucking their blood. And then if Uther comes up with the hammer of justice and drops it down on Dracula, he lets the target go and they move forward.
Totally, and that makes sense. So even regular damage won't stop this. It has to be a stun, or the ability has to come to a conclusion.
Yeah, so Dracula can take damage during this, and I don't know, what are your thoughts on, could the enemy hero take damage during this too, or are they immune to anything else that's happening, only taking damage from this grasp?
Oh, that's a good question, because then we could get into some really cool flavor where Uther would be the best because he's dealing holy damage. But if you're infected by Dracula, you slowly become holy relics become a danger to you as you fall more and more into the sway of the vampire. So maybe late game there's a talent where they take damage based on what you endure during this.
In an alternate universe, I want to play Heroes of the Storm maybe once or twice in an alternate universe, and who knows, maybe this will be a thing someday, but where you have to make choices like that. Like, Dracula is evil blood magic and Uther is light holy magic, and that affects each other. And I think it would become way too convoluted and way too intense to have in the game. But just once, just take me to an alternate generation or alternate universe here where I can be like, okay, I'm going to pick Stukov, and that's going to do this type of damage, and then they're going to counter that with a different type of damage. I want to try it.
Dude, all they need to do is create an RP server, and they get some game masters thrown in there. Then you just type out your game, and you make rolls for stuff, and you got it. You can do it.
Who knows? Now, the next basic ability is called Transylvanian Soil. So Dracula pulls out a bag of soil that he dumps on the ground. It kind of acts like Zagara Creep. So the soil will cover the battlefield about half the size of Zagara Creep. While standing on the soil, he will slowly regain his strength, health, and the soil stays on the ground for a short amount of time and cannot be removed by the enemy. So it's smaller than Creep, it can't be taken out, it only stays for a short amount of time, and it basically is healing Dracula, which, from my understanding, is something that he would have to do, like carry around the soil of Transylvania to regain his strength.
He totally would. Okay, so here's a question. This one doesn't really involve the use of his trait, but could it? Like, maybe if you pull one of the cursed enemies onto the soil, it hurts them or something?
Oh, that'd be cool. That'd be a really cool idea. Now, he doesn't have any pull or push, so that's a great idea to have a good team comp that, works with that. So let's say that Diablo charges in our same scenario, grabs the target, he flips them over so they're marked because he's the first person to deal damage. But when he flips them over, Dracula's just there and he's got his jar of dirt and he drops it on the ground and then he's like, welcome to my house.
Right? Instead of doing the oh and then throws the jar, maybe he does a laugh or something. But it's very maniacal, and I love the idea that he carries around a burlap sack that he uses his nails to open, and he's like, wait 1 minute, and then he starts pouring it around, patting it down, maybe adds a few flowers to it. I love this idea.
And I think that he would be the most, I mean, is the word I'm looking for underspoken? I mean, he would be the quietest hero in the game. Maybe 1 word or 2 word answers, because you know what? These people, I'm Dracula.
Yeah, they're specks, they're maggots, really. They're gnats on the timeline of the existence I have lived.
That's right. Speaking of, let's get into some heroics here. Of course, you have to bring bats in. So this first heroic is called Cloud of Bats, which I found out this week is a way that you can describe a group of bats. You can call them a cloud of bats. So this heroic, Cloud of Bats, 5 bats are going to fly out of Dracula in a set direction. So kind of like a Diablo stomp, but this is just in front of Dracula. Kind of more like, multi-shot out in that sort of way. If the bats make contact with an enemy hero, they pick up that hero and pull them a large distance in the direction that the ability was aimed. At the end of this ability, the bat will drop the hero and they'll take damage from the fall, and they'll also be outside of where they were in the engage.
Oh, dude, really cool. So Stukov arm, but with bats. And what if the longer they're grabbed and carried by these bats, the higher up they go, the more fall damage they receive?
Yeah, so if they're really close to you, you could use this as an escape. Just turn around, launch the bats, they pick them all up, carry them the full distance, and drop them. Whereas if they're further off and you use this, you're not going to get as much bang for your buck, because the bats are only going to fly a set distance. It's not like a Stukov arm in that respect, where if you push somebody, they're going to go on for eternity.
That's a really, really great point. So like you said, this is one that's a very close range. Maybe you're getting dove a lot, and this is how you get the gray mane off of you.
Yeah. So, I mean, I thought we see this in horror films a lot. You know, this big gargoyle-like creature comes flying down from the sky, picks somebody up, and carries them off into a place that they don't want to be. So that's where I was kind of going with this. Now, the second one, stick with me on this one. I'm calling this one Grave. Tell me if you think this is heroic enough. So Dracula summons a grave digger at a select location. Over a period of time, the gravedigger digs a hole in the ground that becomes impassable terrain to both teams in the shape of a long rectangle, like befitting a coffin. Heroes on either side of the battle can choose to fill the hole back in with dirt to make the terrain passable again, but this does require a channel time to complete. So basically, you are able to block pathways with a hole in the ground using this slave gravedigger that you're running around. It works like a Tassadar wall. You activate the ability, you can see the direction of where this rectangle hole is going to be. You can drop the gravedigger on the ground. He comes up, he starts digging his hole. It takes a second for him to do it, but then you can't pass through that terrain.
I like that idea, and it's unlike Tassadar's wall where there's a timer. It's up to the enemy team to get rid of it, or your own team if you want, but I like that idea of heroics that the enemy team has to turn off. It's up to them to stop the challenge that's been put forth.
Yeah, and I think the give and take in between the Tassadar wall and this would be that it takes time to create it. And so that is not like the Tassadar wall, which is an instant pop-up that's going to turn the tide of battle. This, you kind of have to set up your ambush. You're on Sky Temple. You're taking the bottom temple. You know that the enemy team is coming in. So in that left bush, you're going to put the grave right there. Have the time for the gravedigger to dig it, and then they have to come in and out of the other side unless somebody is on the other side channeling to fill the hole back in with dirt.
Exactly. And if they're channeling, of course, they can be interrupted. They can be targeted. They've really put themselves on the line unless their tank is dancing around keeping y'all busy. So for level 20, where would you take this?
I would really want it this is not Dracula at all, but I would really want it to have like some sort of ghouls or something inside of it that are just, constantly reaching out of the hole. And if you come near the hole to try to channel it or whatever, the first hero that comes near it, a ghoul will reach out, grab you by the ankle, and pull you into it, and then you get stunned until... I mean, maybe it goes on a cooldown then, and then the hole fills itself back in. I don't know.
Instant death, right? Why not? Level 20, instant death. Calling for it. If you're dumb enough to face check where this thing would fit, and you know you can check their level 20, so you know what they've chosen, instant death.
I love it. Instant death. I love it. All right. That is my kit. So to sum it all up, it is that fantasy that I'm going for there. Just really strong attacks, but also feeling like he's unkillable is really what I was going for there. And I did my best with Dracula, which was a ton of fun. But before we can call these heroes forged, we've got to talk about specialty skins and dance moves, which I cannot wait for. Kristen, what is your specialty skin?
Okay, so I've got 2 skins. One is a costume that Gary Oldman wore in the movie Bram Stoker's Dracula. He's got this top hat on and these circular glasses and this cane, and I love this costume. But also, why not the Count from Sesame Street? And maybe he counts off the damage he does or how many people are cursed.
It's perfect. It really is, and I cannot believe I didn't think of that. I mean, it's perfect. A Muppet, basically.
Exactly, and maybe you can even see the hand come up, right? So you don't even see his little legs. It's legitimately a puppet coming in, and then maybe when he gets knocked over, you see the elbow come up. Yeah,
and with your, I mean, I can't think of anything more horrifying than with your trait Mist, where basically the Count is in mist, and then all of a sudden he pops right up in front of you. I mean, I think that'd be pretty
Exactly,
scary.
And there's an echo, so it's It's like, no, where is he?
It's great. I also have 2 skins. The first one is, Batman. That's what I was thinking. Like, you're you are the OG Batman.
Right, the Batman who isn't afraid to break some bones to get what he needs done.
That's right. The Batman we all want but don't deserve.
Impossible to kill. Impossible to kill. It fits it great, right?
And now my second idea would be school teacher Dracula. His favorite grade to give on a test, some people think that it would be A+, but it's actually O-.
Oh, that is worth it, 100%. And it would be just like the description for that one horse. No other joke. That's where it is. You don't get it otherwise. It's just school teacher Dracula, and everybody goes, what? And then they read the flavor text.
And they get it. And he carries around, graded paper, and in big red letters on the graded paper, it says O-.
Okay, so he wouldn't throw blood, correct? What would he throw instead?
I'm thinking he's still going to throw blood. Yeah, he's just Dracula, but as a school teacher.
There we go.
We both went the route of learning.
We did, and it's been an enlightening show, let me tell you what.
So let's get even more enlightened with dance moves. My dance move would be that he would be like a EDM rave dance. I mean, because he loves the night, right? But he would have wooden stakes instead of glow sticks.
I love the nightlife. I love to party.
I love the nightlife. I love the boogie. It's great. What's your dance move?
Okay, I kept it a bit more. It's not nearly as wacky. I think your dance move wins straight up. I mean, the stakes. That's beautiful. I went with a gothic waltz. I thought it would be really cool if there were some somber strings that were playing a disturbing melody, and he would waltz with some invisible partner.
Oh, I love it. I think it's really cool, and you could even, form in mist whoever's he's waltzing with. But the invisible idea of it is like all of his loves lost, right? I mean, everyone that it's great.
Yeah, I mean, has he ever had an ounce of humanity in him? We don't know.
And we don't know. And with that, we're going to call him Forged. The first episode of Halloween Heroes Forge has been completed. Kristen, that was a ton of fun to just talk about a character that, you know, is completely out of what we normally talk about on the show. But like I said at the beginning, I think we've got some ideas here that could work.
Yeah, they totally could. I mean, all of these things from both of our builds could be implemented into Heroes and work. So maybe not specifically Dracula, right? But there are Dracula skins in Heroes. There are vampire characters in Warcraft. There's a headless horseman for the Halloween event, for goodness sakes. So we know there's that love there for these darker heroes that aren't necessarily created by Blizzard. So we can assume that if something like that was brought in on a more serious note, stuff like this would have to be implemented.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that I was in the minority when I was at BlizzCon a few years ago and they announced Towers of Doom. But before they announced Towers of Doom, they showed all the heroes. It was Greymane, Lunara, Cho'Gall that year, and then they showed the Headless Horseman, and I went crazy because I thought that's going to be such a cool character to play as the Headless Horseman, only to come and find out that, you know, they brought him into Towers of Doom and he's the boss there, the hardest boss, in my opinion, in the whole game. So I was really bummed that you couldn't play as the Headless Horseman. So I know the need is out there, or the want.
Exactly, and maybe there is a chance in our imaginations the Headless Horseman could be played.
Anything's possible if you just believe.
And ask nicely.
Absolutely. Well, that is our Dracula episode. We really hope that you guys enjoyed it. And like Kristen said, thanks for journeying with us this month and kind of thinking outside the box as we forge more horror icons. It was my turn to choose next week. And let me tell you what, I think it's going to be very difficult what I chose.
It's going to be great. It's going to be a fun challenge, much like turning that shaman into a healer.
Absolutely. So if you're wondering who it is, I'll tell you right now. Next week, we're going to be forging Jaws, the shark from the film Jaws. How are we going to do it? No one knows. But everyone will find out next week at 7 p.m. Pacific on twitch.tv/Amove TV, because we are so honored to be part of the Amove TV podcast and entertainment network. For more great esports and video game podcasts, please do yourself a favor and check out Amove.tv. Some serious, awesome content over there, and it's all great. So, Kristen, where can people find you in the interwebs when you're not on this show?
In the interwebs, you can find me at Dream Destroyer. That is DRMDESTRYR over at Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.
And don't forget to check out our Divinity 2 streams, which are Sundays at 2 o'clock Pacific time on twitch.tv/Kyle Ferguson. Kristen, what are you working on your personal streams?
Personal streams, Batman Arkham Origins. We finally beat up Slade. He goes by Dark Strike in this one, but it's Slade because of Teen Titans. I finally beat him, and we're finally moving on, and now we need to find out who shot some people.
Story of a lot of video games. Find out who shot some people. Hey, I have a public announcement to everybody out there that's listening to this. I hope you get to hear it in time. If you haven't played Dark Souls 3, I found my buddy sent me a deal for Dark Souls 3 from Redbox, believe it or not. If you own a console, you can get Dark Souls 3 for $5. So go over to Redbox, see if your local Redbox still has a copy of it, and you can purchase it for $5. You don't have to return it, you don't have to do anything, and $5 is a slamming deal.
It absolutely is. I mean, I've heard Dark Souls 2, the one I'm on, is the weakest of the three, and it's still amazing. And I've heard Dark Souls 3, of course, just comes in, and it's a great, great follow-up to 1.
Yeah, so get out there and scoop that up if you have an opportunity. Again, that's on Redbox for $5, Dark Souls 3. All right, other information about our show. We have a website. It's HeroesForge.club. You can check out all of the other episodes that we've recorded of the show. It's unbelievable that we're on episode number 91, and this year we're going to hit our 100th episode, which is going to be epic. So make sure you catch up at HeroesForge.club for all the shenanigans we've been doing over the last 2 years. You can follow us on Twitter at Forge Heroes, where we vote every week on which one of the two kits you think won the evening. You can cast your vote again on twitter.com/Forge Heroes. If you've got an idea for a character you'd like to see on the show, you can send us an email. contactheroesforge@gmail.com is where you can do that. Also, thank you again to all of our patrons over on patreon.com/heroesforge. We couldn't do the show without you. And a thank you to everyone that hangs out in Twitch chat every Sunday night. Kristen, anything else you want to say about Dracula or thoughts on this beloved, horrible, horrific character?
Seductive vampire. No. Again, thank you all for going with this Halloween thing. I love this stuff so much. I think his name would have to be changed. I think a big reason why Dracula himself could never appear in the Nexus is because of intellectual property laws. I don't think that name is necessarily free to use. It's probably owned by Warner Brothers, who owns all of those classic monsters. But, why not have a vampire character in the Nexus? There are vampires. We know they're there.
Yeah, and if you're itching for some more of our vampire thoughts, I know we had a bunch of them when we forged the Raven Lord from Heroes of the Storm. What would that character be like if it was in the game? And we had some vampire thoughts over there too, so you can check out that episode on our website. Very good point, Kristen. They would have to change his name, but who knows? For better or for worse, maybe someday we're going to see someone like Dracula, if not Dracula, in Heroes of the Storm. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening to the show, and we'll catch you all in the real world.